Welcome to another Moses lesson. Today I'm in Tony and Kevin's classroom. I wanted to bring you guys one of the Moses lessons from in here, but remember now we're doing what we're calling the desert highlight reel, right? I think I told you guys last time that from now on we're going to be focusing on some important events that happened in the desert. We're not going to talk about the entire trip that the Hebrews and Moses made through the desert, because I think that I have failed to mention where God is leading the Hebrews through Moses. Moses and the Hebrews are looking for the promised land. They're looking for the land that God has promised his people. And God has told them that it's a land flowing with milk and honey. It's the promised land, and it's a place that they've all been really looking forward to going and living out the rest of their lives. And they've been in the desert for a while, but believe it or not, Moses and the rest of the Hebrews traveled through the desert for 40 years looking for the promised land. 40 years, guys! Some of your parents might be somewhere close to 40. Imagine them traveling their entire life and some in search of the promised land. And Moses does that. He's leading the Hebrews through the desert for 40 years, and there is a lot of complaining. There is a lot of drama. So many times in their trip in the desert, the Hebrews stop trusting God. They even stop obeying God. But Moses always continues to lead them, get them back on the right track in the desert and in their lives by giving them messages from God, giving them instructions from God. And I know we've talked in an earlier story where the people were really thirsty and Moses worked a miracle with that branch. He threw the branch in that stream, remember, and turned the water clean. And both stories that we're going to focus on today have to do with water. They have to do with rocks and water. Two things that don't normally go together, right? You cannot get water out of a rock normally, can you? But that's what both of these stories are about. And these stories are actually years apart, but the same thing is happening in both of the stories. The Hebrews are very thirsty, and they're complaining to Moses. They're so thirsty. They wish they would have stayed in Egypt and been slaves, because at least they weren't this thirsty and hot in the desert. And both times Moses goes to God and God tells him what to do. And like I was saying, both times the answer has to do with the rock. The first time that the Hebrews are complaining to Moses about being thirsty, God tells Moses to strike the rock that's in front of them. He tells him to use that staff, the same staff he's had this whole time, that staff that he performs miracles through, the staff that turned the Nile River into blood. So Moses does that. He takes that staff and he hits the rock, and water comes gushing out of it, and everyone can drink it and they can water their livestock, and everyone's happy because Moses has done exactly what God has told him to. And now we're going to fast forward to several years later when they're still in the desert looking for the promised land. And once again, same thing. It's hot and they all get very thirsty, and of course they come to Moses to complain to him, and they say all the same things. They are dying of thirst and they wish they would have stayed in Egypt, and why did you bring us here in the desert to die of thirst? And Moses does the same thing that he always does. He goes straight to God in prayer. And this time God gives him similar instructions, but they're a little bit different. God tells him again to go to the rock that's in front of them, but instead of striking it with his stick for water, Moses is just supposed to talk to the rock so that water will come out of it. But this is where Moses makes a mistake. He loses his temper, and I always feel bad for him in this story because I lose my temper sometimes too, and I'm sure you guys have lost your temper before and done something that you regret, and that's exactly what happens to Moses. Instead of speaking to the rock like God said, he takes his staff that he struck the rock with the last time, he takes his staff and he hits the rock twice this time, and the water does come pouring out, and all the people are able to drink and they're not thirsty anymore. But God tells Moses, that is not what I said to do, and because of this you are never going to be able to lead the people into the promised land. You're not going to get to go. And this is a really sad part of the story for Moses, because for so many years he has been faithfully leading the Hebrews to the desert, relaying messages to them from God, trusting God, obeying God, but he definitely messed up right here. And instead of listening to God, he just reacted out of anger and did the wrong thing. And now he's not going to be able to go into the promised land. And I'm going to stop right there for today. And a lot of our story was about rocks. And Moses was able to perform miracles through these rocks and get people the water that they needed. And so now I have a question for you guys about rocks. Have any of you ever found a painted rock? Have any of you ever painted a rock and hid it somewhere for somewhere else to find it? You can write messages on it or just decorate the rock to look like something. I love finding those. It's a really unique way to like send a message out or just to make someone's day, and it's kind of like a cool treasure hunt that you can go on, and it's something fun to do outside. So I'm going to challenge you guys this week to send a message using a painted rock, and I would like you to decorate it with something that you have learned from these Moses stories. Maybe a rock that says trust God or obey God on it, and you can decorate it however you want it. Or maybe you could even make several of them, and I think it would be really awesome. Maybe the next time you're out for a walk or riding your bike, you could take that rock or those rocks with you and hide them somewhere for people to find. And I really miss all of you guys, and I can't wait to see you again. I really hope that I get to see some of you next Sunday here at church. I'll still be bringing the online lessons a couple times a week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.